Hi and welcome to this new lesson, and here I will illustrate my sayings from the theory lesson and show you how to apply header and payload based metadata management to Apache Spark Structured Streaming and Apache Kafka. So let me just do some setup work before. And yes, it started, and now I will create two topics, one for the headers and one for the payload code. And the first demo relies on Apache Kafka native headers. So headers are separated from the message, from the value, so that if you process Kafka data, you can either select, for example, as me here, value and headers, or you can also select only headers so that you won't even process the value. And in my case, I have a user with some metadata like the generation timestamp in milliseconds and the job version that generated that user into the database. And these headers are a sequence of pairs composed of key and value, of course. And to read them in Apache Spark, you have to specify the include headers so that Spark will take this extra lookup to the message, to each event, and return it to you. So let me just run the code. And as you can see here, we have our value, which is fine, which is something we saw so far. And we also have this extra headers information as a key values composed of the attributes I defined. And that's the first part. Besides, I also wanted to show you other metadata you can fetch, like the partition number, the offset number, or the timestamp of appending the record to the Kafka log alongside the timestamp type. To complete this demo, I will show you the second solution, the second possible implementation. And this implementation, you can use it when your streaming broker doesn't support this native metadata layer, meaning that in consequence, you will need to combine the data and metadata in the payload. So here I'm assuming that I'm not using headers. You see that I will write only the value. And even though I include headers here, you will see later in the select that the headers column will be empty. And in order to read the headers, so the metadata, I will need to deserialize the object and fetch a metadata part just here. And it's a bit different from the previous solution because as you see right here, we always read both parts even though we are interested only in one of them. So it's a little bit less optimal. Sorry, I ran the bad version. So it's a little bit less optimal from that standpoint, but it's a solution that works everywhere because typically for each streaming brokers you will be able to modify the payload, whereas sometimes you will not be able to define the headers. So as I said before, the headers are null and the metadata is present as a part of the payload. And that's quite all for this lesson. So again, there are two methods. They will choose one or another depending on your streaming broker, of course, and maybe also depending on your preference, because having this metadata and data together will probably simplifies you writing the data synchronization code. But on the other hand, if you rely mostly on the streaming processing where you will not need this metadata information, then maybe header-based solution will be easier to implement. So yes, it's up to you to define up to the problem you are going to solve. Thanks for watching and see you in the next lesson.